Hi, my name's Keith Cooper from Northlight Images, and in this video I'm going to try and address a question I'm asked quite often, and that is, how can I make some money from my printer? How can I set up a business using my printer? The question actually arose directly in an email I recently received where somebody said, I've bought an Epson 8550. Now that's a great printer and I've got lots of videos looking at using it, including printing cards and various things like that. And I want to set up a business. What's it good for? Well, my first answer is you've got it the wrong way around. You don't buy the printer first and then think, oh, now what can I do in terms of a business? You might buy the printer first if you're looking at it for personal use, but we're talking about business here, and this is the question I'm going to try and address. Now, I've got lots of other videos that look at aspects of the business side of photography, business side of using prints, selling prints, things like that. But this is much more about the principles of it. And it was, I've got a Canon Pro 300. It's a pigment ink based printer. This is equally applicable to any of the printers I've looked at recently. So just because it's a Canon Pro 300 here doesn't mean this is Canon specific information. It goes for anything. Your first question you need to ask is this a business or is it a hobby? Now, if it's a hobby, then you need to look at your costs, and that's pretty much it. So when it's a hobby, you're worried about the cost of ink cartridges. When it's a business, as well as costs, you also look at your time. And that's an important aspect of it. Now, as I say, I've covered lots of other business related things in videos, so I'm going to be fairly specific to simple businesses using an inkjet printer here. So proper business, costs, time, planning, all kinds of things like that. A hobby, most people concentrate on costs. So you might think that Epson 8550, because it's an ink tank printer, or the Canon G550 I looked at a while ago, also an ink tank printer, it's got ink tanks in it. It's cheap ink, therefore it's better. Not necessarily. What you really need to know is the cost per making a print. Now that cost can cover all kinds of things. It can type the kind of media, you can get the kind of prints, the quality of prints. But I'm talking of prints, so these are products. And you need to know what kind of products you're going to sell. Now, if you're just doing it for your own use, then it doesn't really matter. I've covered a lot of things like this. There are suppliers of cards available, ready creased. This one comes, this was ready creased, came with envelopes even. The media, it's a thin card, is actually coated specifically for printing in inkjet printers. Similarly, this one here is a postcard. So there we go, there's a postcard. This is an interesting media. I looked at this one recently because this one is double-sided. Why is it important that it's double-sided? Well, most media like this only really take good quality print on one side. If you want double-sided, so if you want to put something inside your cards, you have to be very careful. Now, I could print on this media, which is a sort of fine art media. You can see there's some text on the back there. I could print some basic black text inside, but the print quality is going to be nowhere near as high as the front. Now, this comes as well for people ask me, I've got such and such, I've got some £100 card stock that I want to use. Can I print on that? Well, I'm going to say, unless it's specifically coated for inkjet use, and that's aqueous inkjet use, and that's water-based inks, such as you get in all these inkjet printers. Basically, desktop printers use water-based water-based inks. Now, unless you get card that's been specifically coated for it, you will get really bad results. What else might you want to print apart from cards? Well, stickers. I get asked about this one quite a lot. Now, I'm going to assume by stickers you mean printing on a sort of vinyl type media and then applying it to things, whether it's temporary stickers or things like phone skins or computer, laptop skins, anything like that. You think, right, oh, I'm kind of going to print those. I've got a printer that will print it. I'll show you what happens with almost all vinyl type media. Now this is a test print. It's just an ink nozzle check produced on this pigment ink printer, and the ink doesn't dry properly. Now this has been here for an hour or two, and oh, the ink is still not dry. There we go. You can see it smearing. Do I really want something like that stuck to the back of my phone? Probably not. Now, that comes a big problem, because things like this are meant to be printed on. That's what they're produced for. But you need solvent inks. And I'll come back to ink choices and things in a moment. But suffice to say, most stick, and this has got paper backing on it, so I can peel it off and stick it on things. Most printers, desktop printers, are absolutely useless for this sort of stuff. Now, if you find a media that specifically says it is for ordinary desktop inkjet printers, you may be able to use it. But you want to test, because that ink simply won't dry. I can leave it till tomorrow and it will still smudge. The liquid will have gone out of it, but the ink will still wipe off the surface. That's pigment ink. If I try a dye-based ink, in say the Pro 200, exactly the same. So be very careful in your media choices. I did an example. I looked at printing on cards on one of the printers, and with some cards somebody had sent me, and it was absolutely awful. No way could you make decent looking cards. However, the card was cheap. Well, sometimes you get what you pay for. I would say if you're trying this, I've got various test images and things I've produced. This is one specifically I use for testing card materials. So I can check this, print this, and see that it prints okay. So, well, there you go. So stickers are pretty much out. Cards, possible. Photo prints, great. Sell your photos. That's another thing people ask me about. Now, I've done loads of stuff about selling photos, and it is nowhere near as easy as people think. People tend to think, I've got photos, I can print these and sell them. Wrong again. You are thinking the wrong way round. You need to think, who wants to buy my prints? If you don't know who's going to buy your prints, you haven't got a business. Either that, or you've got a very unsuccessful hobby as well. So you need content. So just because you've got a printer and you think, oh, I can produce stuff here and sell it. Great. What are you going to produce? What sorts of images? Now, I've got lots of photos and things I can use for testing and stuff. I have no pretense that I'm going to sell these. Well, that's a picture of a beach in Dorset in the UK, and that is Cannon Beach in Oregon. Really nice prints, but nobody's going to buy these. I might use them for promotional purposes, but if you're going to sell something, you need somebody to sell it to. And that's the bit that so many people don't even think about. But anyway, that's a bit of the business side. What about the actual printer? Now, as I said, this is a Canon Pro 300 pigment-based printer. I've got 200, loads of other printers I've tried. Think of this as a generic desktop printer, because in this instance, they're all pretty much the same. I said people worry about ink costs, and this is why people buy ink tank printers. Perfectly reasonable for office use, and some ink tank printers don't tend to cover a very high quality level, but they do save on ink costs. However, if you actually look at your business, and this is looking at as a proper business, not just a hobby that occasionally brings in a bit of money, you'll look more closely at the actual costs. So, yeah, ink tank printers, that'll save you a bit of money, but is there anything else that it costs? What does it actually cost you for this card here? How much does the ink cost? How much does the card cost? Now, these come with envelopes. That's fair enough. So I've got a cost that I can calculate. The ink costs, whether I'm using an ink tank printer or whether I'm using one like this, are pretty minimal for a card this size. They should make a very small contribution to your impinge on your profit margins. People look at the wrong things. This is why people buy continuous ink systems. If you're running a business with it, you need to look at your costs much more carefully. Now, I'm not saying that they're the same between this sort of printer that takes cartridges and an ink tank printer, just that the differences for business use are nowhere near as great as you might think. Back to this smeary print. And as I've tested this on other printers as well, and they're all equally bad in slightly different ways, but they're all absolutely useless. So you've got no use, it's no use to that. What about using third-party inks? Now, turns out you can take some of the ink tank printers, particularly the Epson ones, because the type of print head they use is amenable to this, and you can put third-party solvent inks in it. Now, the key there is solvent inks. They have solvents in them that go into the vinyl in this case and actually anchor the inks directly in the vinyl. They make them quite smear resistant, the sort of thing that you could actually use. In fact, if you want to produce large numbers of phone skins and laptop skins, your best bet, if you've got a sufficiently large business for it, is to buy a proper solvent ink printer. It's not an eco-solvent or any other solvent, but a proper solvent ink printer. But they're big. They're also considerable health hazard. I wouldn't have one in the house because of the solvent fumes out of them. They are not nice things. A lot of people are trying to get away from use of solvents, but there are some uses, if you want to print vehicle wraps and things like that, where solvent printers still are your way to go. But you just have to be careful with them. They're specialist printers. Almost any ordinary desktop printer, however, will not print on this media. It just simply won't work. You can put solvent inks into a printer, ink tank printer, such as one of the Epson, such as the 8550. And as long as you do it at the start, when you first set the printer up, and you're also not that bothered about voiding your warranty, because Epson are not going to repair it if you've shoved some strange ink through it. As long as you don't mind that, then it's quite possible you'll be able to print on things like this using solvent inks with an ink tank printer. The only problem is, and here it's the clue is in the name of the ink, solvent. That liquid that's in it, the solvent that is evaporated off and that is used for printing like this, that eats away at various plastic tubing, pipes, plastic parts in your printer. So basically, if you put solvent inks in a printer, if you get 4 months use out of it, well, that's pretty good. If you get 6 months use out of it, that's a bonus, because those solvents will not do the insides of the printer any good. Expect to need a new printer in 6 months. Now, if your business is profitable enough that you can afford to get through a printer every 4 to 6 months and just top it up with inks, then good luck to you. I don't try that because I've no desire to ruin a printer, and I've got no real desire to print on vinyl in any quantity. But if that's something you want to do for stickers and the like, then you're going to need to start looking at more specialist inks and adapting printers, or spending the money and buying a proper printer for the job. Sometimes you really do just need the printer for the job. Now, another thing about printers that people don't think of, when I print this card, I load the card up, I print it, there we go, I've done a card. I've done a few cards, did some for some birthdays and for Christmas, I did a few cards. It's not that much trouble because I'm only making, say, a dozen or so. But let's say you want to make 100. You cannot stack in this printer or any other of the printers like 100 of these sheets of thin card. You can't stack in many printers even 2 or 3. I think there's one printer I found where I could get away with stacking 5, and that's it. The printers are just not made for that. They're also quite slow. So that means if you've got a printer producing cards, there's a limit to how many prints you can make at the time. You've also got to tend the printer. You've got to take them off here as they come out of the printer. You've got to load up card at the front. All that takes your time. Time I'm going to suggest that might be better put into marketing your business and actually creating content. Because remember, no content, nobody's going to buy it. So there's something to think of. Print volumes. So if you're looking at a serious business, and as I said, this is one where you look at your time, proper costs, depreciation, all those boring things you have to put into a business plan. If you're thinking of that, then good. You'll probably be able to work this lot out. But if you've just got a printer and just think, oh, I can use this, I can print some stuff. Yeah, you can print a few. But once you start printing lots, once it becomes a proper business, whatever you decide that is, it's a difficult one. You've also, any business where you produce a significant volume of product becomes essentially a fulfillment business. You're going to spend more time putting your cards in envelopes, printing out address labels and doing all that side of it. So stuff you need to consider. So I hope that hasn't put people off too much. But what I'm saying is don't just buy a printer and go, oh, this is good, I can set up a business, without thinking what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, who you're going to sell it to. Above all, remember, as an old adage in marketing and sales, sell what people buy, not what you can make. I can make these, nobody buys them. It's not a business. So hopefully that's been of use. Please do have a look at some of my other business videos. I cover all kinds of aspects of business related to printing, photography, and things like that. And please ask questions, because it was somebody's question to me that actually gave me the idea to put this particular video together. So thanks very much, and I hope it's been useful. And please do subscribe to the channel.